Want to see more cool videos on our channel? We do, so press this bell and enable to send notifications.
In a day when people are trying to make cars using 3D printing designs, making technology is one of the most expensive endeavors one can take. It takes on different levels of implementation, from design to making a prototype, and then having the complete technology up and running. It's quite a bummer when the tech that has been developed is rendered redundant, and all the dough you've spent goes down the drain. Here are a few tech innovations that went up in smoke, seeing that they no longer had any use. They lay in waste, abandoned, and unwanted. Number 10. The BURAN Space Shuttle. The Soviet Union at some point was in competition with the United States, and the BURAN shuttle was in response to the American Space Shuttle. It looked a little promising to many, a sign that the USSR could take over space. Unfortunately, the BURAN shuttle went for a test in space in 1988, and after that it never saw the outer space again. The program created one more shuttle, which was also never really used. These two white elephant projects are sitting dormant in a hangar in Kazakhstan's Baikonur Cosmodrome. No one knows if the shuttles were close to being finalized or if they were any good. From the exterior, it seemed like they were almost done and were made with sophisticated technology. Their high-tech elements can no longer be seen since the spacecrafts are covered in dust. They would be ready to take to space with just a few tweaks, but no one seems to be bothered. Number 9. Walking machines. Somewhere near the forests of St. Petersburg in Russia, you'll stumble upon some humongous mechanical structures, the area being renowned for mining in days gone by. The structures that were used as mining excavators have been left to rust for years after mining activities ended many years ago. Unlike crawling excavators, these walking excavators were supposed to move softly on the ground and protect the soil from erosion. The machine had legs, which were powered by hydraulic shoes, that majestically walked the earth with untold gentleness. Makes you think about Michael Bay's Transformers movie franchise for a minute there. These machines now bask in past glory. They will never be used again, and will only be useful for the tourists who think they are grand enough for a photo op. The location where the walking machines stand once had many excavators, but one by one they have been converted into scrap metal. Number 8. TSS Duke of Lancaster. This is one fine steamship that should have been given a chance to serve the people. It was meant to be a passenger ferry between Heysham in England and Belfast in Northern Ireland when it was set up in 1955. After some time, it widened its horizons and it was taking visitors to places such as Spain, Norway, and Denmark. The capacity was 1,200 for standard class passengers, and 600 guests were enjoying the first class VIP section. It all came to a halting end in 1974 when the Heysham route was closed and the Duke of Lancaster started using the vessel as an amusement ship for parties and having a good time. In 1979, the amusement ship attracted a lot of speculation from authorities who later raised concerns over the safety and health of having the ship doing all these non-transport facilities. It was shut down in the 1980s. This monumental ship is a fading lackluster shell of its former self. Number 7. Luxury cars in junkyards. Luxury cars were built for showing off. If you're not on the road roaring their engines and attracting all sorts of attention, you'd have them in your garage polished to a shine, ready to show them off to visiting friends. The one place that is not really fit for any luxury car is a junkyard. Turns out there is a dedicated luxury cars wrecking yard, all the way in Dunedin, England. The place has earned the name Flying Spares and has been running for 20 years. The sole purpose of this place is to break down vintage cars with a special focus on the Bentley and Rolls-Royce. Ouch! It's hard to imagine turning a Bentley into scrap metal spares. This car graveyard has seen the demise of vintage cars from the 1970s and 1980s. Other than vintage cars, there's always the random modern car. In recent years, the majority of the cars that have been taken to the junkyard have been deemed to be irreparable after an accident. Extracting the parts and selling them to owners of functioning cars is a special art. Number 6. Derelict Submarine Wreck. Otherwise known as the Yellow Submarine of Coney Island Creek, it has failed to live up to its name. All the yellow is gone from this Navy Yard ship from Brooklyn. It was built as part of a bigger plan to raise the wreck of the Andrea Doria, which was a luxury cruise liner that sank near Nantucket in 1956. A careless operative messed up the plan as the sub prepared to launch. The strategy was to lower it slowly into the water so that it could be filled with ballast in readiness for the assignment. The operator, not knowing what they were doing, dumped it in record speed, causing it to flip over and sink immediately. The cruiser that was meant to be raised came to the surface, but it was too damaged to be used in any way. It is nowadays used by fishermen as a platform where they catch their fish. Number 5. Japanese submarines. Submarines, like fish, only thrive well underwater. It's no surprise that this unique midget sub is in ruins. It's been out of water for a mighty long time. It's also far from home since it was spotted in Kiska Islands, somewhere in Alaska. It belonged to the Japanese during the Second World War, which then makes sense why it was way out here. This 78-foot-long submarine is linked to the killer whale in terms of design. It's among 6 other subs that were diverted to the island in 1942 during the attack on Pearl Harbor. Apparently, 2 Japanese soldiers were meant to man the submarine. You wonder how they navigated through since the sub is very narrow. In 1943, the Japanese had to vacate the island in a hurry when the American and Canadian forces landed. They did not have time to neatly pack all their equipment and go home. Number 4. Secret space capsules. This next equipment was spotted somewhere in Russia. The person who took these pictures was not supposed to be at this top secret location. Pretty clandestine stuff. These are relics from Russian space age and comprises of ship parts and full ships, which were said to be part of something great. Additionally, the level of technology portrayed in the design of the capsules needs to be somewhere in a museum to inform today's advancements. Inside the capsules, you get an idea of how little space the astronauts worked with in preparation for the launch of space expedition. Ugly marks on the exterior of the vessel are an indicator of how entering back to the Earth's atmosphere was chaotic. Number 3. The Galaxy Cruise Liner. This was once a luxurious cruise ship. It's, however, looking a little too shabby nowadays. It's hard to come by any information about this hotel ship that was abandoned in Koh Chang, Thailand. Residents in Thailand are a bit cagey when it comes to talking about the cruise ship. Apparently, the ship is haunted somewhat, and some people who went to explore its insides have never come out. On closer inspection of the interior of the ship, it seems that it was abandoned in a hurry, since there are personal items in the cabinets and some beds still have beddings. The stray cats and dogs living in it now seem to be quite cozy. You can tell that it cost a fortune to build. Unfortunately, its glorious days are over, and the only money it makes now is a $20 fee for the security guard, who mans it and charges for people who want to explore. Number 2. Space Shuttle External Fuel Tank. This does look like a Space Shuttle external fuel tank. No? It's close to that. It's a model. Why would someone waste their resources on making a model, which would not be used? 1. It has to have been very expensive to build. NASA built it with the intention of it being testing ground for their work. It was functional for 3 years before it was abandoned, and was a display at the Kennedy Space Center. It was later sold for auction to a bidder in Keystone Heights, Florida. The bidder, however, faced a dilemma while moving it to their location, since it was so huge to be accommodated on roads or highways. The bidder gave up, left it where it was, and it's still there to date. Number 1. Forgotten Hulk of the GM Aero Train. This was evidence that GM tried and failed at creating rail transport for the future in the 1950s. GM was supplying train engines to train companies in the 1940s and 1950s. Maybe this was the association that made them confident about trying their launch into the train business. Their competitive advantage was going to be designing a cheap train that would be faster and cheaper. The train was made of aluminum, a very light metal. Then, this was thought to be a plus. It was sure fast in the early days and did 100 miles per hour, which in the 50s was quite a feat. The flip side is that it was not comfortable, as passengers were rattled about in the vessel. Going up a hill was quite problematic too. By 1957, it was clear that these trains were not usable and their use was halted. They are now iconic pieces in museums, a reminder that GM almost got into the train business. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please let me know by clicking the like button. Do share, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch up to my next video.